Okay, so I'm Rodasi Ishaya. I'm a teacher of the Bright Path Ishayas. We're an international organization committed to enlivening consciousness through sharing tools of consciousness that are basically like meditation, and they're used with the eyes open and closed. You can learn more about that at www.thebrightpath.com. And I'm interviewing one of my mentor teachers, a master teacher from our Mastery of the Self course from the Bright Path, Jaya Ishaya. Hi, Jaya.
Hi there.
And I'm just really excited and honored to get to interview this teacher, this woman who I admire and respect, and who's been a support for me on the path of what I'm going to call awakening and being present to all the love and joy and beauty and aliveness that's actually available to us in every moment that we just kind of miss because our attention is somewhere else. So having said that, I just want to give a little more props to Jaya. Jaya is not only a master teacher at the Bright Path, serving internationally in our mastery courses, such as in New Zealand and Mexico and Brazil. She's also taught in Canada and here in the United States, and supports a large chunk of her time in Spain, our Mastery of the Self course there. She is also the author of the Choice book series, and Choice 1 and 2 are currently available at Amazon.com with more to come. Right, Jaya?
That's right. Number 3 is on its way.
Okay, great. So my first question for you is, how did you come to the Bright Path Ishaya's Ascension meditation technique, and were you practicing meditation prior to coming to this practice?
No, I wasn't practicing anything. In fact, I had a little bit of a curiosity in spiritual things, meaning maybe tarot cards or reading energy, and that was very new and vague for me. So I didn't have any kind of like interest in meditation at all. I traveled, I lived on the beach, and I kind of believed that alone time, and I was a gardener too. I loved my garden, and I really felt that was my connection time. And I used to be in the garden and feel that connectedness, feel that calm, feel that love. And when I got invited to learn these techniques by a friend who knew me very well and thought that I'd really appreciate these techniques and this teaching, when I first I kind of resisted it because I was like, I don't need to meditate. Like, why would I need this? And I didn't really understand what meditation was. Probably like a lot of people, that word brings up lots of concepts and ideas about what we believe meditation and meditation people are like. And it didn't fit into me and into my world. I didn't want to join a group. I didn't think it was what I was all about. So when I actually went to the introduction talk, which was a free talk that the teachers put on one evening, I was actually really impressed that everything that I'd kind of been starting to expose myself to and feel this desire and this connectedness and a sense of purpose, that was always my thing. They were talking about that. And the challenge for me always had been like, what am I here to do? What is my job? Like, why am I on this planet? What is my life all about? And it can't be about that job, and it can't be about just my garden. And so the sense of purpose was what really drove me. And the teachers talked about that on that introduction talk that I was a part of. And that's why I went on to learning the techniques. When I first learned the techniques, I was actually really surprised about how outward my attention was and how concerned I was of how people thought of me, how I gave away my power and I gave away my happiness constantly looking for other people's approval. And I hadn't seen it up until that point. So basically, as soon as I learned to ascend, as soon as I learned these techniques, I started to become very aware of who I was showing myself to the world. And it wasn't the person that I really believed I was, and I was acting like that because of the thoughts that I was believing, saying that I wasn't good enough, or I had to act a different way, or I needed their approval. And so by just seeing it and practicing these techniques, I started to realize that the greatest love and the greatest beauty is inside of me. And it was a very quick turnaround. I was so surprised how quickly these techniques showed me these thoughts, and then allowed me to move that attention back inside myself, really, and to find this greater love and this security within myself that I guess I've been looking all my life outside of myself. So meditation takes on this one word, which I always used to associate with Buddhism, or, people in cloaks meditating in a mountain, suddenly became this living experience of how to actually live life, how to actually sit in my own skin and love myself and love my life. And that's what meditation is for me. And when I look at it that way, then I believe everybody in the world needs to know this, because it's just too important to live your life in so much doubt and questioning who you are.
Yeah, I love that the chime just went off as soon as you said that that you want everybody to hear this. It's so awesome. It's like the universe was like, yes, Jaya, yes, let's share it.
We agree. People texting me.
Oh, no, that's great. And I can relate to so many things you said about, for me, really not feeling comfortable in my own skin and seeking outside myself erroneously to feel that sense of purpose and wholeness, completeness, joy, love. I think I see that is sort of the norm in our world. And yet it's not what's natural. I mean, because it really creates a lot of anxiety for us to be seeking outside of ourselves, because nothing is sure out there.
Mm-hmm. It's like everything that makes us feel uncomfortable or afraid or unstable is all because of our mind, the thoughts we're believing in our minds, and we don't know anything else. So we don't know that there's actually a stability and a stable experience within us. So it changed my life completely by realizing that I didn't need to be finding and searching and hunting or believing that this world wasn't good, and by simply using a technique or a tool that lets me see those thoughts and not need to believe them anymore, then everybody discovers that stability and that safeness and that love is automatically with us instantly. So that search is finished.
Jaya, I was going to ask you to describe your experience of life and how it's changed since you've practiced. You've just shared quite a bit about that. I would like to just speak to something. I just taught this weekend and watched people's lives shift in just one night. And then by the end of the weekend, a lot of shininess going on and a lot of possibility opened up. But one thing I noticed unconsciously in myself and in many, many people I've met and even taught ascension to is this underlying idea that peace, unbroken, unsolicited, causeless peace really isn't available or isn't possible for the world, for me, for various reasons that are attached to something circumstantial, maybe outside of us or having to do with our body. And I just see people sometimes with hope in their eyes that it's possible, sometimes angry at the idea that it's even possible and defending their reasons for why it's not. And so I just wondered if you could speak to that. Have you noticed that? Is that something you've seen? And what do you see as the remedy to that if you do see that?
Oh, yes, I see that. And when I started practicing as well, it was very much maybe the teachers could have it, or maybe the people who've been doing this for a long time could have it. But there was really this idea that it wasn't for me. So I believe that that's in a lot of people, if not everybody. And why that is because we've become so removed from just having a simple experience of contentment and a love within ourselves, like this inner peace. We're very removed from that when we hear it's possible, it does sound like a dream, and it does sound like this fantasy that perhaps if I work really hard, or perhaps if it's for them, but maybe not necessarily for me, but maybe I can get closer. So most of us take on those ideas, and why that is because the mind, the thinking that we're attached to, can't describe something that's so present, and the thinking is limited. It only can describe what it believes in. It's a concept. So all those thoughts that we attach ourselves to, that we really believe in daily life, we can't understand something greater. We can hear about it, and so it sounds like it's objective and perhaps sometime in the future. But we really, really have this belief that it's not for us, that maybe we can just do one or two steps closer, and that's enough for us. So why people kind of resist it or get angry about it or even saddened by the idea that they could have peace is because for so long life has been a struggle. For me, it was very much I was a very emotional person, and I was very much influenced by everybody. If my girlfriends did or didn't do something, I responded to that in a negative way. If work did or didn't do things, if politics, weather, I was very dependent on the outside looking a certain way to me. So how they acted, how the world was, determined to me how my happiness was. So when you really look at that, because this is for everybody, we're very much then saying, you have my power. You have the power to make me happy or sad. So what are you going to do? Are you going to make me happy, or are you going to make me sad today? So depending on how we take things and view things, we're always believing we're second best. We're always believing that things have to change and then I'm going to be happy. So we don't actually own or understand that we can have it. It sounds like, it has to be about the money. It has to be about the rich house. It has to be about these things. And that's what's going to give me my happiness. That's what we see on television. And so when people first start to practice the techniques, any techniques for meditation, if it's helping you see the patterns and the reactive patterns, but especially these techniques, because it's so quick, you start to really see that you have all these thoughts and this thinking that's going on all the time, and that you can actually start to disengage from it. You can actually watch these patterns. You can actually watch these reactions and allow them to just fade away so that a different experience can be your experience. And that's when all of this kind of mind stuff and reactions and insecurities becomes objectified. It can start to become this thing out here that sometimes I can react to, but right now I can just watch that and see that I can react and now make a different choice to not react. As simple as that sounds, that is the huge step of awakening, of starting to become detached from all those old patterns and old ways of thinking, and to start to experience a peace that's present. And the importance of that is the experience. Your life, my life, completely changed because of being able to have a tool that allowed me to step back from the thinking patterns, to treat it like something out there, so that I could just watch it, laugh at it, and not take it seriously anymore. Things still happen, life still happens, the weather changes, the politics do this, the friends do that, but you can be an anchor in your own peace and not a victim to what's going on around you. That's magic. That's pure experiencing life, because then suddenly I have the power. I'm back in control. I can choose for my peace and my happiness, even if I don't agree with that, but I can still be singing and dancing in the rain and just enjoying my life without this constant undercurrent that there's something wrong and something that needs to be. that is huge, because it just turns it around to you starting to live your life again.
Thank you, Jaya. You mentioned the word awakening, and I mentioned it earlier too. And I just wonder, you know, I like to unpack for people and really debunk whether it's the word meditation or living life in the present moment or awakening. Um, and I just wonder if you'd be willing to share from your own experience what this awakening is.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many terms, isn't there? And enlightenment, awakening, waking up, self-realization, so many terminologies that can just sound very big or very confusing for people. For me, the word awakening, it really is awakening from how I had been living very much addicted to the thoughts and believing that was real. All these thoughts and ideas, reactions about how I see myself, how I believed other people saw me. And a lot of it was so unconscious that I had no way out. It was just happening. And so what the meditation gave me was a tool, like I said before, to kind of start to disengage from constantly thinking these things and having ownership to them. And then realizing perhaps it's just a pattern, that now I can see that and not necessarily be that. It might not be true. And when I talk about patterns, I'm talking about things that perhaps we needed when we were 3 years old, or helped us when we were first at school, to defend ourselves, or to react when mum wasn't there. But 20 years later, I don't need to react when somebody's not there anymore. I'm a big girl now. But that pattern of the reaction, or that pattern of abandonment, or that idea that someone walked away from me that shouldn't have, because what did I do wrong? Those are patterns that when they start to keep feeding our reality to life, they are now limiting what's really happening in our world right now. Does that make sense? It's like something happened years ago, and it created the ideas that most people have about feeling separate from a group of people, or needing approval. And maybe in that moment it was valid, but it stays happening all through our life, so that we have this automaticness when people treat us a certain way or talk to us a certain way, that we instantly react, and usually negatively. Depression's based on that. Fear is based on that. Insecurities are based on that. And so we become so attached to those ideas and believing them to be real, that we don't understand that that's not who we are. It's just an idea. So what waking up is, or the words we were just mentioning, to become more conscious of these patterns, is what the meditation does. We use a tool that then shows us so clearly that these are just ideas and concepts in our head, but it's not true. And the tool helps us to disassociate from it, and so we can have a different experience of life. The different experience of life is to not react, is to see a bigger picture, to listen to people, to not take something personally. So much gets said and we react to it, we take it personal, and it wasn't meant that way. So that's what awakening is all about, is actually seeing the patterns that we've been so attached to, and then simply by having a different view, or a bigger view, realizing that there's a whole different way of loving yourself, loving your world, loving your environment, listening to people, experiencing contentment within yourself, seeing beauty all around you, instead of focusing on what's wrong, focus on what you have. All of these things were new for me, because it wasn't how I was living daily. Living daily for me used to be a lot of negativity and a lot of judgments. And I'm so grateful that I don't live that way anymore.
Yeah, that's really great. And you just reminded me that, for the longest time, I thought that because I'd read all these books, Eckhart Tolle, or Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, even Paramahansa Yogananda, these beautiful experiences that people were having that seemed really far away, outside myself, very mystical. This awakening and enlightenment thing seemed really elusive, and that it really is this simple choice that you're talking about, this simple choice. But I really needed myself an effective tool, because I wasn't having all those concepts in my head were actually keeping me thinking that I was somewhere that I wasn't, in a way, thinking that I was on this path of evolution when really I was still just churning around in my head. And there was still a lot of judgments, and even judgment towards people who I perceived as not being, on this path that I thought I was on. So I just love the distinction that, first of all, it's not some far off mystical thing. And number two, that it is therefore for everyone, and it's beyond concept. I can't think my way into this living experience, right?
No, it's beyond the mind. It's a living experience. The mind can't comprehend it, actually. And
go ahead, Jaya.
oh, sorry, I was just going to add to what you were saying too. Is one of the things I love about the retreats that I spend a lot of time in is that's where a lot of the support is to help the experience become more livable. Our own daily practice is very important to, whether it's just positive thinking or learning to just laugh at your life, or to use a meditation tool that actually helps you to really disengage from reactive patterns and silly old ways of thinking that we don't need anymore. But what I see as one of the most beautiful things for this teaching anyway, and hopefully for anybody in the world, is to have the support, which is like-minded people, which is guidance, which is having the access to being around people that are going to help us along our journey of just getting out of the mess of believing these silly thoughts and these reactive patterns, and learning to live free and happy. And that's what this teaching provides too, is a lot of support. The teachers around America and around the world are a Zoom call, a Skype call, a text away from helping anybody.
That's awesome. I have definitely experienced that. I've experienced the path of trying to do it all by myself, and the path of being surrendered to being a part of, and exploring what that is. I just wonder if you could talk maybe a little bit more about those two paths, like for you, what the difference. I'm just speaking in terms of, kind of being off on one's own, trying to attain this living experience of true inner peace, not just conceptual peace, and actually, from trying to get that and thinking about that to actually beginning to commit to and stay with a path that actually is effectively producing that result.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done both too. I didn't want to join a group, and the idea of being around a group of meditating people really wasn't what I wanted at all. Because I had ideas of what it was going to be like. I thought it was going to be all the leftovers of society. We're going to close their eyes and meditate, Poor people to do this. They're out living life, right? But what's funny is that the people who are truly living life are the ones that can disengage from their mind and can see that these thought patterns are not who they are. And so when people start to learn to do this and to meditate and to realize that they're not those thoughts, then there's this natural joy and excitement for life that happens. So you put a group of meditators together, and especially with the bright path, we all tend to be quite loud and joyful, and there's a lot of joy, which is awesome, is to be around people that are just happy and just alive and bouncing ideas and just vibrant with just who they are, because nobody's judging and nobody's self-critiquing or feeling uncomfortable about themselves. Everyone's just present. So there's this natural joy. So to be with a group of people like that, it's so inspiring because it edges us on. It invites me to be even more comfortable in my own skin and to be even more playful with my adventure called life. So to be with like-minded people there's an energy, there's an invitation to be even more of who you are. Doing it by yourself, which is part of my path to begin with too. Anything that we learn that's helping us to disengage from the mind and to live life bigger, anything is working and is a huge step forward. So I would never say that anybody's path is wrong or incomplete, because everybody's doing the best they can once we take it on that we want to start changing and we're willing to change. Once we own that, then no matter how it unfolds, it's beautiful, because you're learning to become conscious in your own way, in your own time. What I discovered though is when I was on my own, it was very easy to just fall back into the old patterns. It was very easy to react and to believe these old things I've been trying to not believe anymore. And so the growth was very slow for me because those patterns were strong. And I didn't realize it. It just was. So I wasn't transcending those thoughts, or I wasn't having a different relationship to them because of that. Even though I still closed my eyes, a couple of times a day and practiced. And with this tradition, with these techniques, you can use the techniques with your eyes open as well. I loved that, because that was my main reaction, was talking to people or at work or driving, road rage and all those crazy things. But I'm so far from my experiences now. It's like, did I really used to get angry in the car? What's the point? Who's listening to me? It's so stupid, isn't it? But I used to do that because it was just this reactive pattern. And I couldn't transcend that when it was just happening. It was when I started to become around like-minded people and people who are doing the same practice as me and using the same technique, so we could really connect and share and just advise each other without being teachers, but just by talking and sharing and encouraging each other. I mean, that's what this whole teaching's about. It's like support and love and joy to just go, come on, you can do this. So what have you reacted? Let's just hit the reset button and take it from here. And just by hearing that, it's like, oh, thank goodness, there's nothing wrong with me. And we need to hear that time and time again, that it's okay. It's okay that I just fell back into just hating my neighbor or whatever. It's like, it happened. Who cares? Okay, let's just go from right now and just use the techniques and just be present to what is and just enjoy life right now. Just let that stuff go. It's not important. And it's just like, oh, thank you. Yes, I can do this. And that's what the groups do. And that's what the support does. When it's by myself, letting go of some energy or the position of wanting to be right, no, that wasn't very easy. I was pretty determined to be right a lot of the time, which caused me a lot of suffering, but I never saw it. I didn't see it until I had the opportunity to transcend that.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. Definitely being living from the spiritual voice in my head,
Good one, isn't it?
Yeah, and right alongside of that all-knowing voice in my head, like judging me, judging the other, judging the journey. You mentioned the word contentment earlier, and man, that is so not a part of the culture I live in or grew up in, to be content. It's very much the opposite that's taught to us, that we have to continue to strive to make every moment better, rather than what I've discovered in this practice is resting right now reveals so much majesty. Everything I was looking for outside of myself. No, maybe inside of me doesn't exist a big grand house or something, but what's better? What did I think that house was going to give me, the sense of stability and security and fulfillment. So I just so appreciate all the support that I have in recognizing that even that spiritual voice in my head is not worth paying attention to.
Yeah, and sometimes that spiritual voice is actually the killer, because it's the one saying, I have to be happy, I have to be at peace, I have to do it this way, which is actually judging perhaps what you're simply naturally going through. So it any voice becomes, instead of being a help, can actually be a hindrance. It's amazing how violent those thoughts are. And that voice that then will be telling us that we're still not doing it right. We still haven't got it. We've still got to try harder, even if it's to let go and have peace. I've got to try to let go and be happy. You're like sitting there going, oh my gosh, this is hard. And for me, even the practice of these techniques, I tried to do it for the first years. And so it was a hard practice for me because those patterns were just still kicking in. And what awakening really is seeing that none of that stuff is valid. And we're so conditioned, like you said, to try and to create and to achieve. I mean, I still do things, I still have goals, and I still walk towards results, by all means. The universe is showing me a lot of ways to create a lot of stuff around me. So it's not like you stop participating. In fact, it's by being present, you're more clear and able to do the task at hand 100% with complete joy and fascination. So you're never overwhelmed. You're never confused. You're simply present to what's happening. And then all that creativity is there to support it. So in my experience, it's like, just by doing a meditation and by being present and learning to just rest in this moment and discover that true essence of who you are, it's like all of that of who I am has been allowed to come out now and to be showered into this world. Like earlier you said, Rodasi, that I have written 2 books and another book's on its way. I would never have dreamt that was even in me, or what the heck would I have even written about? It was like there was no urge in me to do that years ago. And at the moment, there's this creative process that's kind of like just pouring out, and it's because there's no blockage, there's no doubt, there's no questioning. And when you allow those gates to just open, it's like life allows what you're supposed to present to this world to actually be presented. And that could be in your job. It could be a job that might seem really mundane, and but you have to do it. Instead of struggling through it day after day, choose to enjoy it, have fun with it, and let creativity move you. And so then everything that we're doing throughout the day becomes this blessing and this joy. Even cleaning, you can have a lot of fun and really enjoy it rather than struggling through all these steps of our life. It's just it turns everything around by just being present and allowing who you are to actually shine in all aspects of what you're doing. I forgot what you asked me. I think I went around in a circle here.
Yeah, well, it's all really beautiful. I have a couple more questions. I'm just looking over my notes, but you've covered some awesome stuff, Jaya. I just want to say, when I read your book, though, I haven't read Choices 2 yet, but in reading Choices, the first book, I just saw myself. It's a book that's really cool because it covers all of these different people's experience of the desire to, or whether it be unconscious or conscious, to wake up to this experience. And I could relate to so many of the folks in the book, and the stresses that they were kind of coming from in a way. But what was really gorgeous was from the teacher's perspective, which I assume was from your perspective, the teacher in the book, and how she witnessed and experienced each person and their awakening. And oh, I could start crying right now. I know that you live in that experience. I know you have seen, not only taught a lot of First Spirit weekends where we teach this practice to folks, but in holding space for those of us who have wanted more, and more playfulness, more connection, more support, more enlivenment in this experience, and have come to the retreats, and that you've gotten to see that awakening, evolution, light coming on in people. And so I just wonder, what are, I'm sure that must be just a really incredible thing that you also didn't know that was in you to do and have an experience. Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea my life would be like this. like I said, even just turning up at my first class was like completely something that I had never have dreamt that I would have done. Like, I didn't think meditation was in my cards at all. That's 15 years ago now. And over that time, just the way that life changes you, and by being present, how you learn to become yourself, and then to find ways to share that with other people. For me, it was just very natural that there was such a change happened in my life, and that the chains of being tied to thinking about stuff compared to not, and how that really changed who I am and how I approach my life. That it was just natural for me that I just wanted other people to experience that. So teaching became a natural next step, wanting to encourage other people and giving them the tools so that they could do that for themselves, and then giving them the coaching or the support of whatever they were going through. And over the years working in retreats, well, firstly with the weekend classes, to see, and to see somebody change so dramatically from a Friday night to a Sunday afternoon, like so dramatically, like just layers upon layers of hardness just falling away into just joy, and the word contentment again, them experiencing that in 2.5 days is like stunning. Like, wow. How incredible. Like, everybody should know this. And then the ongoing support of that, so that they don't lose it or doubt that it's that they can't do it, or that the fire goes out. And it's like, so supporting the journey afterwards, like to be an inspiration for someone else, or to be a little bit of a guide, so that when somebody's got that passion, when I remember when I first started my journey, to just keep saying, you can do this, so that they don't stop, or they don't believe the voices in their heads doubting it. I mean, it's what moves me now. I can't imagine not being in a position where I'm not supporting other people or inviting them to just be themselves more or love themselves more, because whatever they're going through, I'm receiving some energy from it too, because it's just such a beautiful thing to watch the struggle be over. And I know everybody has a struggle, no matter what it is. We all have our ideas about ourselves, and probably how we believe other people see us. And to actually not treat those thoughts as real anymore, and to discover there's another way of living life is everything. That's the whole purpose we got put on this planet, I believe. And so my books reflect that. It's a lot of the questions and doubts that I went through and other people around me went through. So it's a lot of questions and dialogues about everybody's journey. So it really feels like, I've heard this before, that people feel like I get inside their head, because it's like, hang on, I'm thinking this about myself, and she's right, I'm reading it. She wrote this. Where did she get this information? But it's a real livable book, because you can take what these people are going through into your own experience. And then the whole purpose of the book is to start lead towards answers. It's like, well, hang on, I'm really doubting this is for me. And then the answer comes like, well, actually, this is what you can do. And this is how you can address this. So any way that I can actually help other people on their path now, anyway, it's just such a joy and a magical journey, because I have no idea how things keep changing and evolving for me.
Yeah. Are you open to us sharing how people might contact you? Just we have, obviously the website, thebrightpath.com, for people to just check our stuff out in general.
Yes.
And then you can be found, your books, Choices 1 and Choices 2, on Amazon.com. But is there a good way for people to find you, should they want to share anything with you or ask you for anything?
Yeah, absolutely. All the Shire teachers of the Bright Path have a link email of our name at thebrightpath.com. So it would be Jaya, which is my name, Jaya at thebrightpath.com, and that email will get to me. So that's absolutely fine. I'd be really excited to hear any comments and to be some sort of guide or have a response back. That'd be beautiful for me.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Jaya. Well, one of the things that you said was the different questioning, the questioning that comes up, the doubts that come up on the path. And I mean, I could go into like,
Oops, we froze. Are you still there, Rodasi? Let's just wait a minute and see if we can get you back. Oh, we froze. Are you there?
I
Yeah,
can
sorry.
see you. Are we good? Okay.
We're good now. Yeah, just a little froze.
Okay. So this question has a part A and a part B, and you might decide you just want to throw it together.
Okay.
But that is that on the path, on the journey of this dissolving of the stress and the beliefs and the dissolving of the habit of paying attention to the thoughts, to the mind, and the rehabitualizing of being just alive in the present moment, of just being fully attentive to right now. What have you noticed on folks who are first coming in as sort of a major sort of, I don't know, like a common pitfall that people can get into if there is one? And then likewise with folks like myself, for example, who've, are on the journey and like giving and living in this thing, and what a common pitfall for somebody, like how do we keep going, and the pitfall, and how do we keep going?
Yeah, good. I think what's pretty common for a lot of people who first start, because it's like you're newly going to the gym, you're newly moving into a new habit, forming a new habit. And that's what meditation really is at the beginning. Forever, we have been thinking and believing these thoughts forever. And now we've got this new tool that's promising us all this good stuff. And so, it's promising us that it works every single time we think it, no matter what. But sometimes we don't experience that. Our minds are very busy. We're very much attached to those thoughts, and they very much seem real. So at the beginning, for people to really trust the process. And I hate the word process, but it really does feel like at the beginning we're really learning to use the technique and just to keep seeing. Like, are we thinking? Are we believing these thoughts? Or are we able to disengage? Are we thinking them? Are we disengaging from them? And so are they subjective or are they objective? And that seems to be the whole dance at the beginning of learning to meditate. Luckily with these tools, they're so simple, and with the eyes open, you can practice all the time. So there's really no reason it should be a struggle. But for a lot of people, it does seem to be a struggle because they believe it's not working or it seems hard. And if it's hard, I don't want to do it. So what I've seen with people, actually this is across the board, whether you're a newbie or an oldie, you've been doing this for like a few weeks or like a few years, or 10 years sometimes, is to really trust that when you have a lot of thoughts, or when today just seems really agitated or lots of energy, it's just really depersonalized from it. It's not about you. It's all okay. It's like the weather. Sometimes we've got endless blue sky, and other times we've got lots of clouds. And what am I going to do about it? Am I going to try and get rid of those clouds? No, it's a cloudy day. It's just clouds there. Same as when we've got so much going on, and it just feels like a full-on day, and you're trying to ascend and it doesn't seem like it's working. It is working. Just don't take it personal. And it's not because of you that you have all this energy. It's not because of you that you have all these thoughts. Just trust the process. Coming back to your ascension attitudes, and just trust that some days are just going to be like that. And then you wake up the next day and it's like, oh, today's calm. Thank goodness. It's always going to happen. Even for me, 15 years later, some days are just full on with my ascensions, eyes closed or eyes open. There just seems to be a lot happening, like energetically, or just a lot of attention on details and stuff. And it's like just trusting the process. This is what's been given to me. It's not because of me. It's not my fault. It just is. And if we can play with that, if you can remember that and play with that, even if you don't have a meditation tool, it really helps us to just allow whatever's happening to be okay. We're not the owner of those thoughts. They just happen to be there. Why? Who knows? It doesn't matter. And so that's a really good tip if you're just starting out, or if you've been practicing for a long time too, is to really not take it personal what's going on, and just keep trusting and taking the next step. For people that have been practicing a bit longer, I would add in I would definitely say that, allow, and don't take it personal. Keep trusting the process. But I'd also add in something. And for me, the big step forward in my awakening, or in my understanding of the mind and my relationship to the mind versus the relationship to just being present, was playing with the alertness. Because you can keep meditating or ascending and use your techniques 20 times in an hour or whatever, and the rest of the time you're still conditioned to thinking. So you're not really transcending the thoughts, our habit of daydreaming or pondering on something, or worrying if the washing machine's finished or not. Things that we just think about for goodness knows why. We're not transcending those thoughts by just letting them play themselves out. If it happens, it happens. Who cares? Once again, don't take it personal. But if you have the opportunity to play with being a little bit more alert or present, gently alert in your practice, what you're doing is actually really starting to learn that your thoughts are objective. And so you're really starting to discover the subjective experience of peace. And of course, that's really the goal here, is learning to live in this ongoing peace. And how to do that is to transcend the thinking. So the daydreaming has to end at some point. We actually have to step back from it and actually look at it objectively and realize it's not serving us, even though we think it's giving us some sense of happiness. It's not. The experience of resting in this present moment and experiencing that an unending peace and that joy that wells up from within that empty space, that eternal space, gives us way more than those thoughts. And so the alertness, and playing with the alertness, gives us that. That
Wow.
would be my tip for the advanced people.
That's a great tip. As I've been playing with that a bit for a while now, and it's it's really changed the experience for me of being able to rest and just be moved through my day in a very on purpose way, whether I'm parenting my 2 children, or working on a to-do list and details, answering emails, teaching a class, doing the dishes, whatever.
Yeah.
It's really, I had no idea how much more, and I can experience, actually, Jaya, that there's room for even more. Like, every moment offers an opportunity for like supreme attentiveness. but having said that, one thing that has also changed is the gentleness, and how it's not like I'm forcibly efforting at trying to be attentive. There's this contentment and this gentleness that, I've reached out to you for help before, and you've said the words allow, and just be gentle. And so if you could just speak really quickly to that, how important that is on the journey.
Yes, it comes back to that old habit of trying to make something change. And, we all fall back into it because that we want something to change. We don't want to be this person that's suffering, and we do want this peace. So obviously we want change. So from the mind, we need to try and change something. And meditation's the opposite. It's by allowing what is in this moment, we've disengaged from the mind and we're experiencing that peace. The peace and the contentment, the inner love, the love that connects us to all of us together, the love that gives us a sense of purpose and gives us the sense of wonder in this world, is resting in this moment. It's this eternal space that all of us can access and just rest in. And the only thing that stops us from experiencing this is by thinking. When we start to think, we're now in the past or the future. We're not present anymore. So it's this combination of willing ourselves or allowing ourselves to let go of the attention of the mind, of the thinking, to allow ourselves to just be present. And this, it's almost like you fall into it, or allow yourself to just be here. Like you sit down on the beach and just go, I'm here now. And that actually is effortless. It's very gentle and it's extremely present. To begin with, it might feel like we try to go from mind and thinking to just being here. It just seems a little bit confusing sometimes to begin with. But with practice, you realize to be present and to be resting in this moment and experiencing this eternal inner peace is natural. There's nothing to do but disengage from the thinking. And the way to disengage from the thinking is to use these tools that allow us to come present, and then with a combination of being alert so we're not caught in the reactive patterns, you're automatically in this awakening state, in this experience of peace. So it's almost like opposite to what we've been taught about how to try and make something happen and, try harder. And with meditation, it's the opposite. The very thing that we're looking for and desiring, that peace and that contentment and that joy, exists already. It's allowing ourselves to just experience it. And the more you can just rest in this moment and feel okay to just be quiet and not to engage into the thinking. And if you do, you just rest back. You start to grow this eternal nature that's already yours. And you start to be comfortable to just be present. And once you start to realize that it's always there and that it is easy and effortless, then there's no need to try and hold on to it or to try and make something happen. All the trying just falls away. So it's naturally there, and the meditation gives us the tool.
Jeez Louise. Oh my gosh. That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, thank you. It's not like, it's not like this is new news to me, and yet as you share, the thing that I love about this teaching, that it's such a privilege to be a part of this practice and sharing, is the transmission of, Jaya, I know that you're coming from a direct experience of this as you're sharing it. It's not coming from the concepts in your mind. It's in a fully integrated, realized thing for you, right?
Yes. There's no way I could share like this by having learned it in a textbook or something. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing this, because this is actually what I experience is actually everybody's right. And the only thing stopping anybody is the thinking. And it's really that simple. So my journey and what I experience now is mine to give away, actually, to share with other people.
Jeez, yeah. I mean, I feel that inside my own self as this continues to be sort of refined here. That there's just like no other possibility, that it's just the natural flow to just keep expressing that. And so thank you for being so constantly, what appears to be to me, constantly willing to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wondered if you could share and this is sort of two questions in one, and then we can wrap this up. But what's one piece of advice that you received from the guidance that you have from your own teacher that has been continuously in play for you throughout this, well, I keep saying journey, but since you learned the Bright Path Ishaya's ascension techniques, and in that, sort of in the same vein, what is the most important thing from that you'd like to leave people with as a message of possibility, truth, whatever?
What comes to mind right now, and I know it was a huge impact on me, was I think when, and maybe for a lot of people too, we might believe we've got all these stresses and patterns that we have to transcend. So it sounds like we have work to do, and we've got all these things that have to dissolve before we can possibly experience something relatively close to what could be freedom or awakening. And one time my teacher said to me, just rest in that space right now. Just rest there and just don't leave. And how simple, how simple the sentence, and how simple the instructions. And it was at a time when I just really listened to his advice. And when he said that, I basically just put my attention into this moment, allowed myself to just rest in that beautiful peace that exists in all of us. And the invitation was just don't leave. Like, why leave? And so when I started to just put more attention into that space and that joy and the peace which just exists within us all, which exists within me, and the invitation was not to go anywhere, was basically is saying, don't go back into thinking. Just don't be tempted to put any attention on anything that's moving or what you're thinking about. Like, just stay in this moment. Just stay here and let that take over. Like, let yourself just rest. And for me, that was a huge turning point, because that's when I realized the contentment did exist within me. And it's when I realized the ability to just be in this present moment for longer and longer periods of time was real. Like we talked about earlier, the ideas that can actually make people angry sometimes when they hear about peace and joy and all these beautiful things. And we're like, well, what about me? Okay, it's good for you, but what about me? And this was maybe the time, or around the time, when I actually realized it was real. And it was something that I could actually be experiencing. From that instruction, from that very simple instruction, just be present and don't leave, I actually started to play with, when I did leave, I did start thinking again and reacting. Again, just come back and just stay here. And even just saying that, you can hear how gentle that is. It can also, perhaps from your own experience of how you interact with your own self or your own knowledge of your mind, can perhaps recognize that it's doable. Or perhaps you need to just be a little bit more vigilant to just becoming more present. But by me playing with that, it became real. Everything became real. The word freedom, I actually understood for the first time what freedom meant. Freedom from thinking, freedom from the mind. It was suddenly real. I could do it. I could just rest in this moment and remain there. And the more I played with that, it became more natural to just never leave. There's no reason to leave. And that's when I realized that to be present is actually our true nature, and thinking isn't. That's when that became 100% without a doubt true for me. And then the other things that come from that too, the big words like enlightenment, unity, union with God, oneness with God, our true self-realization. All of that started to make sense for me by simply resting in this moment and staying there. What you start to realize is the addiction to the mind can be broken. Why would I want to break it? Well, because the truth of who I am is way bigger than that. And that there is a way to actually do it and to live life completely different, to actually own that you actually are that divine being and that essence, universal essence that isn't confined to these ideas and these concepts. So it became a real experience for me, and that has continued to grow and grow and grow to this day and into the future, I know, because there's no end to it. There's no end to the discovery of that space and of that presence, because it's infinite. Living life from the concepts in the mind and living life from the infinite universal expression of who you are, completely different, completely different. So yeah, it's worth everything to do it and to know this.
I think that's a great note to end it on, Jaya. Do you feel good?
I feel
Complete?
great. Yeah, thank you. I do. I feel like it's been a great message for people.
Thank you so much for your time and your willingness to do this. I know that it's your passion to just be of service when you're called. And even when you're not, you find ways. And I am inspired by that. So this has been Jaya Ishaya from the Bright Path, an international organization of folks committed to sharing a meditative like tool with the world internationally. I think I said that. www.thebrightpath.com, and Jaya can be reached at Jaya, Jaya, at thebrightpath.com. And she has 2 books available right now, more on the way in the book series called Choices. And that's Choices 1 and 2 available on Amazon right now. Yeah. And I'm Rodasi Ishaya, and thank you so much, Jaya, one more time, and everybody for viewing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.